All right, get ready, because we're going deep on something you only think you know. Trick-or-treating.
Oh, it's a long, strange trip to the bottom of those pillowcases, yeah.
Way more twists and turns than you'd think. Ancient rituals, little Roman Empire action, and
And some good old American chaos. Gotta have that.
that's right. So we're going to look at the whole thing.
Yeah, from the really old stuff to, well, candy corn.
Exactly. We'll see how something so modern, I mean, who doesn't love trick-or-treating, comes from some really different places and times.
It really is amazing, like, finding threads of ancient beliefs woven into, like, a king-size Snickers bar.
Okay, so let's go way back. Ancient Celts, their festival, Samhain. Basically Halloween's ancestor, right?
Yeah.
October 31st, honoring those nature gods, making sure the harvest was good.
Right, big feast, doing thanks, all that. But there's a twist.
What's that?
It wasn't just about the good stuff. Celts thought this was when the world of the living and the dead got really close.
Like how close?
Like a curtain you could almost see through between us and them.
Spooky. So was it ghosts that had them worried?
Not exactly. It was more like spirits of folks they maybe did wrong during the year, you know?
Oh, like if you ticked off your neighbor.
Right, and they come back all ghostly, demanding an apology.
Like, hey, you stole my prize-winning turnip last fall. Stone Age Facebook block for you.
Exactly. To avoid that, they'd leave food and drinks on their windowsills.
Smart move. Like a please don't haunt me snack.
Yeah, preemptive peace offerings, Celtic style.
Fast forward a bit. Now we've got the Romans with their festival called Lemuria. What's the connection?
Similar idea, actually. Romans also believed those who, well, died tragically, their spirits could stick around and cause trouble.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So did they have a way to deal with these unhappy spirits?
They did. Offered up something called mola salsa, simple cake flour, and salt.
So food offerings for the dead. That's pretty consistent from Celts to Romans.
Yeah, that link between Halloween and food, it goes way back.
Crazy how cultures so different had such similar ideas about the afterlife and how to keep things chill with those who've, moved on.
Human nature, I guess. But hold on, the story doesn't end there.
Of course not. We've got centuries to cover.
Right, so Roman Empire fades, Christianity's on the rise, Catholic Church gets clever.
Uh-oh, how so?
They started absorbing all these old pagan festivals, Lemuria included, gave it a makeover, new name, All Hallows Eve.
Which we know is obviously Halloween. But were the Romans going door to door for candy? I don't think so.
Not quite, but something like trick-or-treating, that started brewing in the Middle Ages.
Really?
How so?
You gotta understand purgatory. This idea comes into play.
Okay, now, for those of us who maybe slept through medieval theology class, what exactly is purgatory?
Picture it like a waiting room for souls not quite ready for heaven, place to get cleaned up, purified.
So, not hell, but not heaven either.
Right. And this idea, it really took off. People worried about their loved ones stuck there.
That they'd pray for them. Yeah, but that's not all. Beggars would go around, door to door, offering to pray for folks' loved ones in exchange for, well, you guessed it.
Food. Like early trick-or-treating, but for spiritual favors.
Bingo. This was called souling, helping souls instead of a sugar rush.
Big difference, for sure. We've gone from calming down cranky spirits to helping souls navigate the afterlife. What's next in our Halloween history tour?
Well, let's hop across the Atlantic, see how Halloween does in the New World.
Sounds good. Did those early American settlers bring Halloween with them?
They did, yeah, especially the English, Scottish, and Irish folks, but ran into a bit of a problem, the Puritans.
Ah, the Puritans.
Yeah.
Party poopers, right?
Not exactly fans of Halloween fun, saw it as pagan,
Yeah.
tried hard to squash it.
But obviously they failed. Halloween's huge now.
Well, they almost succeeded. Then the Civil War happened, changed everything.
Wait, the Civil War boosted Halloween. How?
Devastating war, so many died, tons of bodies never identified. Ghost stories exploded, especially about soldiers.
So it gave American Halloween a darker side.
Yeah, spookier. And that actually fueled its comeback. Around this time, you get the Irish legend of Stingy Jack spreading too.
The guy with the turnip lantern, right. The original jack-o'-lantern.
That's him. Americans switched to pumpkins, easier to carve. So now you've got ghost stories, spooky lanterns. Halloween's starting to look familiar.
So late 1800s, Halloween's back in America, but with a ghostly edge. Is this when trick-or-treating takes off?
It does, but not before things get a little rowdy.
Oh, what kind of rowdy?
Pranks that went way too far. Not just soaping windows. We're talking dismantling wagons, messing with train tracks, even arson.
Yikes. Sounds more like a night of terror than a holiday.
It was getting out of hand, and then the Great Depression hits, communities are struggling, can't afford to fix all this damage.
Things must have come to a head.
1933, they called it Black Halloween because of the vandalism. That's when folks realized something's got to change.
And that's where trick-or-treating as we know it comes in. Like, hey, here's some candy, don't burn my barn down.
It's part of it, yeah. People wanted to tame Halloween, make it fun again. And then this woman, Doris Hudson Moss, she kind of stumbles onto a solution.
Okay, tell me about Doris. She sounds important.
1939, she writes an article, American Home Magazine, talking about how she stopped these teenage pranksters.
How'd you do it?
Simple. Gave them treats, candy, instead of getting tricked.
So Doris Hudson Moss accidentally invented modern trick-or-treating.
Pretty much. And you know who loved this idea? The candy companies.
Oh, yeah. Hershey's, Mars, they must have been thrilled.
Saw the potential right away. Started pushing their candy for Halloween.
Wild how trying to stop mischief created this, like, candy industrial complex.
It is. But it wasn't just Doris and the candy folks. Whole communities were looking for ways to make Halloween safer, more organized.
So Halloween parties, parades, those all came later.
Right, designed to channel that energy into something positive.
From fear and mayhem to a planned celebration. What a turnaround.
We basically tamed the Halloween beast. But the story doesn't stop there. We'll dig into how it kept evolving and maybe some fun pop culture stuff in part 2. So while all this taming was going on, you know, Halloween itself started changing, like how people celebrated. Remember those bogey books?
Oh, yeah, from Denison, right?
Yeah.
Those guides for Halloween parties and stuff.
Yeah.
It's wild they were part of this, like, shift to a more fun Halloween.
Totally. Smart move on their part. And then as these organized celebrations became the norm, you start seeing more store-bought costumes.
Makes sense. So instead of just, you know, a sheet over your head or a homemade mask.
People were buying pre-made costumes, yeah. It's a big change in how folks approached Halloween. Less DIY, more like a shared experience almost.
And of course, this is where the candy companies really come in, right?
Oh, absolutely. Hard to imagine Halloween without those giant bags of candy.
It's crazy. Did you find out anything about, like, how big of a business Halloween is now?
Oh, yeah. It's huge. In the U.S. alone, we're talking billions of dollars just for Halloween.
Wow, that's insane. Candy, costumes, decorations, parties, it all adds up, I guess.
It really does. It's wild to think something that started with, like, ancient fears and rituals is now this giant money-making machine.
Talk about a transformation. From appeasing spirits to satisfying our sweet tooths.
Exactly. Shows how culture adapts, how traditions can totally change over time. But it's not just about the money either.
What do you mean?
Halloween's become this major cultural force, like everywhere. Fashion, music, movies, you name it.
True. Halloween stuff is everywhere you look come October. And it's not just for kids anymore either.
Right. You've got Halloween-themed cocktails, clothes, decorations. Everyone's embracing the spooky season.
I guess we've all become a little obsessed with Halloween.
Kinda, yeah. It's gone way beyond its roots. It's everywhere. But even though it's more commercial now, it hasn't lost that sense of mystery, you know, and the fun.
And of course, who doesn't love dressing up? Doesn't matter how old you are, it's always a blast.
I know. It's so freeing. Like, you get to be someone else for a night. Halloween's the perfect excuse for that.
So from ancient rituals and offerings to, you know, mountains of candy and elaborate costume parties, Halloween's had quite a journey. Where does it go from here? What's the future of Halloween?
Well, if we look at what's happening now, there are some trends popping up. Like, everyone's more aware of the environment these days. Sustainability is a big deal. So maybe we'll see Halloween get a little more eco-friendly.
Interesting. Like what? Biodegradable costumes?
Maybe. Or less focus on all that prepackaged candy, more homemade treats. And you can't forget technology. That's got to play a part, too.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we're already seeing virtual haunted houses, online costume contests. What's next?
Virtual trick-or-treating. You visit different neighborhoods online, collect digital candy.
That's wild. Or like augmented reality, those apps that put spooky filters on the real world. Halloween could get really high-tech.
Right. It makes you wonder, though, does all this technology make Halloween better, or does it lose something?
That's a good point. It's got to be balanced, right?
Definitely. We can embrace the new stuff, but we got to hold on to the things that make Halloween special in the first place.
Absolutely. So what's the takeaway for our listeners?
Halloween's always changing, right? It's up to all of us to decide what it becomes.
That's a great way to put it. So as we get ready for another Halloween, let's remember how this holiday got here. All the crazy turns and changes.
From ancient times to today, It's amazing how much Halloween has gone through.
And what about the future? Who knows? But it's going to be fun to see what happens.
Yeah, Halloween always finds a way to surprise us.
All right, that wraps up part 2 of our deep dive into the history of trick-or-treating. But stick around, we've got more to come. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've gone from ancient festivals to, well, mountains of candy. Quite a trip through Halloween history.
It has been. And it seems our listeners have been thinking hard about this stuff too, because we had some great questions. About the future of Halloween, no less.
Oh yeah, let's get into those. First one, this is from Sarah. She asks, and this is a good one, with all the worry about kids' health these days, do you think we'll ever see less candy on Halloween?
That's right on point, Sarah. Candy is like the heart of trick-or-treating now, but yeah, could things change? Maybe.
I'm trying to picture it. Halloween without candy, it's tough. What else would kids get excited about?
Well, there are some things already happening, like more non-food treats, stickers, little toys. Those are popular.
Makes sense, keeps it fun, but not just all about sugar.
Exactly. Some places are even doing healthier snacks, mini pretzels, fruit leather, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's smart. More options for everyone. Okay, next question. This is from David. With video games and all that, do you think real-life trick-or-treating will die out?
That's a big question, David. It's true. Technology changes everything. But going door to door, that's hard to replace, you know?
I think so too. It's that whole experience, the costumes, being with friends, the anticipation at each house.
And you get to be out in your community talking to people face to face, making memories. You can't download those.
That's such a good point. So yeah, virtual Halloween stuff is cool, but I don't think it'll ever totally take over.
It's about that real life connection. That's what makes Halloween special, I think. And hey, who knows what new traditions people will come up with.
Well, that's got to be our last question for today. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Just this. Halloween, like anything else, it keeps changing. It's affected by everything, trends, technology, even what each of us chooses to do.
It's in our hands, really. So this year, as we're getting ready for Halloween, let's think about how we got here. All the crazy twists and turns over the centuries.
It's a trip going from ancient fears to, picking out the perfect pumpkin.
And what about the future of Halloween? That's up to all of us. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be fun to watch it all unfold.
It always is. Halloween has a way of reminding us about tradition and community, even while it's changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our Halloween deep dive.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.